The James Show Podcast.
I want to start with something that I think needs to be put in the SAM context. The SAM initiative is when Democrats last week got together at some fancy pants luxury hotel in New York City and decided that we need to reach out to young men. How are we going to appeal to young men? Well, let's keep that in mind through all of these stories today, and tell me why you think you're not doing so well with young men, my friends on Team Blue. Starting off with there's a local protest. Now, this just got put online when I was on my lunch break, and it's already trending. If you go to Google Trends and you look just at the DFW area, you're probably not aware of this yet. This is going to be the first you heard about it, but there's a protest that's happening right now outside of the Federal Building in downtown Dallas, about 10 blocks of that away from where I'm sitting right now. And it's not on behalf of a fellow Texan. This is on behalf of a foreign student who is actually going to Columbia University, also New York City. And she's a Palestinian who was attending Columbia University. And she was on a student visa, but then she was arrested and taken to the Prairie Land Detention Center in Alvarado. Now, the protesters are saying she is being arrested and held for speaking out against the ongoing genocide in Gaza. No, you're kind of selling a big bag of you-know-what there. That protest, and I'm using the air quotes there, in Colombia, included people camping out, trespassing, breaking into buildings, not leaving buildings when they are authorized. There's a couple of assaults and batteries on security guards there. But more importantly, this is the protest that you saw with your own eyes on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, where the Jewish kids were trying to go to class and you had people who were masked up blocking them. They were blocking Jewish kids from going to school. So that's a little more than just, I was speaking out against the ongoing genocide in Gaza. No. You were breaking laws. You are participating in a group that was actively breaking laws, using violence or intimidation to further a political cause, which is the textbook definition of terrorism. And also this whole Free Palestine. People seem to be doing ugly things while that chant is being heard. You just had the flamethrower fella from earlier this week. Free Palestine, after he tries to burn 8 elderly Jews. Yeah, so I'm not real thrilled about your choice of association, lady here on a student visa. You know, there was also the guy chanting Free Palestine after he shot and murdered 2 Jewish 20-somethings in the back in D.C. Remember that? They were leaving the Jewish Heritage Museum in Washington, D.C. Some guy comes up behind him, shoots him. When the girl tries to crawl off, he reloads his gun, stands over her, shoots some more bullets in her, then waits for the authorities to come pick him up, and he's yelling Free Palestine. No, this isn't just some harmless little group that happens to be concerned about an ongoing genocide in Gaza. Free Palestine was what the guy was yelling when they pulled him out of his car on Bourbon Street on New Year's Day after he ran over some more of your neighbors. So no, you're not just part of a group that has a difference of opinions violating your free speech rights. You're part of a terrorist organization at this point. And here's another tip of the pros here. For the Palestinians, the activists that are gathered outside the Federal Building right now, just blocks away from me here in downtown Dallas, there's a picture of them. Credit to WFAA. Stop wearing terrorist garb. You know, the kufia, am I saying that right? That it looks like a picnic table blanket that Yasser Arafat used to wear. That's the symbol of, Palestinian struggle. That's the kind of the branding of Hamas. It was the Fatah movement, but there's not really that going on in Gaza. So this is what people wear when they're committing these terrorist attacks. These are the flags that they're flying when they commit these terror attacks. This is the cause they are supporting. People die for this cause. Stop putting terrorist garbs on your head and acting like we just have a difference of opinion. We do have a difference of opinion, but your opinion's terrorism. So no, that's pretty actionable, actually. This isn't a great taste, less filling debate. This is a debate where people on your side are murderers over and over. There's a clear, distinct pattern. And even though people have been wearing MAGA hats for 10 years now, anyone gets set on fire from a MAGA hat? Has anyone even committed a crime wearing a MAGA hat? Anyone firebomb a Tesla in a MAGA hat? Anyone run over fellow Americans while they're wearing a MAGA hat? Has that happened yet? Anyone get shot in the back for being a perceived political opponent by a guy in a MAGA hat? No. So it's not just that you have a difference of opinion. It's that your opinion has been strongly associated with violence. We call that terrorism. So no, this is not a good look. This is not a good cause. And if you're on the side of the terrorists, you might want to reevaluate your worldview. And I don't mean the people that are down there protesting. I mean you other people who are on Team Blue and thinking you're on the right side. And you're thinking, well, we just got to fight the Nazis. If Hitler was reincarnated and he had a Twitter account and he put his little handle, I don't know, Final Solution 123 or whatever. And you know how they put the little flags next to their Twitter handle and their profile or whatever? Or they have like the Ukrainian flag or the Palestinian flag or whatever, Mexican flag, something to that effect. What do you think Hitler would have? Do you think he would have the Palestinian flag or the Israeli flag in his Twitter handle? Whose side are you really on? The terrorist? So that's happening right now while you're at work, out there being productive, paying your taxes, contributing to society. What's Team Blue? Y'all are on the side of the terrorists. Y'all are wearing the terrorist picnic blanket around your head. You know, you don't have to wear a headscarf. This is America. I know it's like 90 degrees outside, and it would be more comfortable if you could take that. You're free. We're not going to oppress you. And this is Adam in California. You're on WBAP. Go.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on some of your closing comments from your last segment about, it's not the people in the MAGA hats that are running people down, or it's not the people in MAGA hats that are, flame throwing, incidents like that. But,
right.
What it is the people in MAGA hats that were trying to overthrow the government, the people in MAGA hats that are begging and asking for commutations and pardons, and the people in MAGA hats that are, also against the reform, criminal justice reform and sentencing, but the first ones in line to, beg for the commutation and the pardon. So I just think your whole take is just pretty weak, and it's pretty snowflake. That's the perspective that some of these people want to come from. Thank you.
No, please stick around. Adam?
I'm here. I'm just,
okay.
I wanted to listen to some of the comment.
So have you ever seen anyone in a MAGA hat set something on fire?
Oh, I saw plenty of smoke bombs and tear gas canisters going off on J6. So
okay, so that's a no.
Difference.
Yeah, that's a no. So how many people have MAGA supporters killed?
It's probably up for debate. I mean,
the answer is zero.
What type of data are you looking at?
Well, let's just go back to this year. It started off with a pro-Palestinian person running through a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing many people, injuring many more. What's your equivalent for that from the MAGA crowd?
I do have a life and a career and a family, so I don't keep up with the day-to-day.
Well, then perhaps you shouldn't have a strong opinion on it if you don't know.
Well, I mean...
Are you uninformed? I don't think you're uninformed. I think you can't come up with an example of that. I don't think you can come up of an example of someone in a MAGA hat setting other people on fire based on their ethnicity or any reason.
When you want to add the caveat of starting this year, well, let's not start at January 1 of this year.
Let's go back all the way to the dinosaurs then. How many people in a MAGA hat have set another human being on fire?
How about going back to...
I think it's zero. Is that a zero? Is that what
period? Let's talk about J6.
Yeah.
MAGA hats everywhere. So talk about it. Fires, assaults.
Yeah, they weren't fires. No one was burning flags out there.
Taking craps in the offices. Going through, private property of elected officials.
Okay, so you're equating a wayward Duke with a guy shooting two Jews in the back when they came out of the Jewish Heritage Museum in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago.
What did I imply that had any sort of equating?
Okay, because the scenario, I have an answer for that. The scenario is I gave you 3 examples of horrible terrorist murders that have happened by Free Palestine activists just this year, and I'm asking what's your equivalent. You're like, well, January 6th they pooped in an office. Oh, yeah, got us on that one, Adam.
I did. That's why you're kind of like backtracking.
Yeah, see, that's called sarcasm, because everyone listening knows that those two things do not equate. Being murdered, being shot in the back, or being setting elderly people on fire or running over them with your car is far worse than a wayward dump.
A wayward dump. The attempted overthrow of the United States government.
You really think it was an overthrow? They didn't bring guns?
Because they were having a hissy fit. Oh, there were guns there. It's been documented. It's on video. They've showed it.
Yeah. Tons of guns there. You just didn't see them. Now, there were some guys who had like a gun in their car and they got charged with it later. So, yeah, of course, there's paperwork. There's guns all over. They were unarmed. They were walking through. They stayed for 90 minutes. They left when they were asked to leave. If they were going to overthrow our government, what were they going to replace it with? What were they going to replace the Constitution with? The Constitution?
So why the pardons?
Because these people who...
Why were the elected officials like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene asking for pardons preemptively?
Because these
nothing wrong.
Because these guys who just walked through the Capitol were put in solitary confinement for over a year. Because not only had they already served the punishment that's far beyond the crime, the misdemeanor that most of them did, a lot of them were still going through it. A lot of them were still in jail. Now, anyone that actually hit a cop or I see the guy that bear sprayed or whatever that pepper spray stuff is. Oh, yeah, throw the book at those guys. But for the people that we talk to on the show, like Larry Brock, who's probably going to be on maybe tomorrow. Actually, I meant to tell you that, Garrett. There's a lot of people who were walking through an open door, past cops who did not stop them, in fact, waved them on or gave them directions or took selfies, and they were treated far worse than these people who are supporting the terrorists about 10 blocks from where I'm standing right now. And if you really think that there's some sort of equivocation in the violence that has been visited upon society by Free Palestine activists versus MAGA activists, you're intentionally blind. You can't really think that. Go.
Are you done talking over your guest?
Yes, go.
So I guess you're jumping all over the place, and you're jumping to Palestinian and headscarves and terrorist headscarves and making these absurd comments that you do. Your little clickbaity tactics that you use. But in the end, basically my call was about signing off your last segment, trying to say how people in MAGA hats don't ever do this or don't do that. We've seen plenty of examples. We've seen plenty of examples since Trump has gotten into the office the second time.
All right, look, I got 30 seconds here. Do you have an example of anyone in a MAGA hat setting anyone on fire or shooting anyone in the back or running over them with a car? The answer is no.
YouTube and find the MAGA hats with all the Nazi signs hanging off of overpasses. Plenty of it out there. We'll see it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, see, so hanging a sign off an overpass, just as bad as setting an elderly person on fire. Same thing. Does he really think that there's an equivocation? I realize there's a cognitive dissonance in your head when someone puts forth the truth that you have to like let it sink into your head, and it's got to be uncomfortable. You are on the side of the terrorist. You are on the side of the people who commit acts of violence based on your political ideology. You are on the violent side. You are on the bad side. You are on the wrong side, Adam. Your Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, so they're going to rename a U.S. Navy ship that was named after Harvey Milk. Now, do you know who Harvey Milk, Garrett, do you know who Harvey Milk is? Just yes or no? Okay, so good. He said he's familiar with the movie with Sean Penn that was based on Harvey Milk. Somewhat of a controversial figure, although, it's universally accepted that him being the first publicly elected gay member of something in San Francisco, I think everyone's way over that. No one cares if you're gay anymore. You can get elected to office. Just if you want to balance the budget, I don't care who you're sleeping with. I'd vote for you at this point. But Harvey Milk was also controversial because after he got elected to the San Francisco board of something or other, he got assassinated and he got gunned down. And when you're a gay rights advocate and someone kills you, you get martyrdom. You get special elevation. And so he has been sort of a big figurehead based on not just his work, but also the fact that he was assassinated makes him quite a sympathetic figure. And a ship was named in his honor. And it wasn't even really that long ago that it was named in honor of Harvey Milk. It was the USNS Harvey Milk got its name in 2021. And now Pete Hegseth is going to change it. Now, first, I will admit that Pete Hegseth is doing a little bit of trolling here. It's not really important to the functionality or the capabilities of your Navy. And it's also, the timing is a little suspect. You're going to announce that here in the first week of Pride Month. You couldn't have done that a month ago. You can't do that a month later. So if you think that's just a coincidence, keep going. I don't. But secondly, that doesn't make him wrong. I think he's absolutely right to do this because the Navy vessel, it's not supposed to have anything to do with men having sex with each other. I mean, that's just kind of a joke we all have about the Navy. Really? You want to be on a boat for 6 months at a time with 2,000 dudes? Yikes. So there's always been kind of that joke there. So I don't know if that was part of it. But the problem here starts when we made the naming of ships political to begin with. Of course, this is political. But it was also political when you named it Harvey Milk in the first place. Harvey Milk had nothing to do with the Navy. He might have looked good in a sailor suit. But we didn't used to name our ships in political terms. Now we do now. If you look around, you got the Ronald Reagan, you got the Harvey Milk, you got all kinds of Harriet Tubman. Again, nothing wrong with her, but she have some sort of overlap with the Navy or the military. We have the USNS Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We have the Dolores Huerta. We have the USNS Lucy Stone, the Cesar Chavez, the Medgar Evers. And this is sort of a recent phenomenon. If you're a World War II nerd, like I am, you know what the cool names the ships had back then? Like, think about the Battle of Midway. There's the USS Enterprise. Doesn't that sound a little more intimidating than the Harvey Milk or the Harriet Tubman? Again, not to disparage their lineage and their heritage, but we had the Enterprise, we had the Hornet, we had the Yorktown. See, these are like kind of manly names. These are inspirational names. We had the Intrepid. When you go back in U.S. naval history, you look at the first aircraft carrier. It was called the USS Langley. Oh, well, there's one named after a person. Yeah, he's an aviation pioneer. He's not a politician. He wasn't part of someone's political movement. He got that distinction because of what? His contributions into the thing that's going to be landing on the decks of this ship. But going back in Navy history, we had cooler names back then. Some of our other aircraft carriers, the Lexington, which not named so much after the town, but named after the battle, kind of the American Revolution. We had the USS Saratoga, also a great battle in the American Revolution. We had the Ticonderoga. We now have some of our ships, USS Coral Sea, which was based on that battle. So the problem here is when we start making something political, it's necessarily going to turn to, dog squeeze. This is what happens when you insert politics into anything. You're just dropping a turd in a punch bowl. And so then there is also the case that Harvey Milk, in his biography, it was admitted and confirmed that when he was 33 years old, he entered into a adult relationship with a 17-year-old. And while I think the age of consent in New York when that was happening, where that was happening, technically that's legal. And it's still a 33-year-old grooming a minor. 800-288-9227. This is Alan in Dallas here on WBAP.
Hey, James, just want to disagree with you on this fact.
Sure, go ahead.
Milk served in the Navy, and he was discharged because he was a homosexual. So, again, I think they're trying to make a right when they did this, and there's no doubt there's politicalization of this.
Yeah.
But, again, I just think you sound like a bigoted jerk, honestly.
How am I bigoted?
Basically, you're saying that we shouldn't name things after people because of their sexuality.
No, I never said that. And if that's your interpretation, then I did a terrible job explaining my position because that's not it.
You did. You sound uneducated by the fact that you didn't mention first the fact that he served in the Navy and was discharged because of the fact that he was a homosexual. So, again, you said people can sleep with whoever they want. Well,
You have to dump that. All right, he said something ugly that we had to dump. Dang it. I like it when they disagree. Just keep your mouth clean so we can keep the fun going. No, I do not hate them. And if that's what you come away with, then you're aggressively misinterpreting what I'm saying. And it probably makes you feel uncomfortable because I'm making a good point. It's like the guy in the last segment. He had to start doing some ad hominem attacks because I was making good points. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Should we rename some of these ships because they have a political backing to the name? I think all of them, even the ones I agree with, even like the USS Ronald Reagan. No, let's go back to giving them cool names that were either some kind of concept, like the Intrepid, name them after battles, like the Ticonderoga or the Saratoga. I like Enterprise. That sounds cool. Or if you're going to name it after a person, don't make it political. Do it like the Langley, like the first aircraft carrier. He was an aviation pioneer. And I don't care whether or not the person you named it after, who they sleep with. Apparently 35 minutes ago, I guess maybe more like 40 minutes ago, Elon Musk tweeted that the reason we don't have the Epstein files is because Trump's on them, and that's why he's so mad at Elon or something like that. I don't know if it's true. I'm looking into it, but I'm in the middle of a show. There's only so much I can do. I do know the first guy who sent it to me, Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. Shout out to Dallas Express. He's actually going to be on the show later. So I have something to talk to him about. But right now we're talking about the changing of the name of a ship. I don't mean to make jokes here, but it is kind of funny that, you know what the Harvey Milk ship does? It's not an aircraft carrier. It's not a battleship with a bunch of guns on it. Trina, do you know what the Harvey Milk ship does? It's a lube ship. It's an oil ship. And that's not a joke. This is more evidence that we're living in the Matrix. You don't have to answer that. But it's literally an oil ship. Really, the ship carrying around thousands of gallons of lube, you're going to name after Harvey Milk. Okay. But I still submit that the problem isn't that it's named after the wrong person. It's that we're politicizing the name of ships, period. That creates nothing but divisiveness. That does not help the military readiness. This is a distraction we don't need. And we need to get back to giving them cool names like the Enterprise and the Hornet or the Wasp or something cool like that. Maybe name them after old battles or something. This is Nancy in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Go.
I think distinguished military, like the USS Nimitz. Hello? Isn't there an Eisenhower, too?
That's a good... You know what? Could that be politicized, though?
I would hope not if these people actually fought in a war and have medals. Purple Heart recipients.
Well,
how can you politicize that?
Okay, but Nancy, my concern here is, you probably didn't hear this, but months ago, it was proposed by Brandon Gill over here of Denton that maybe we should put Trump's face on the $100 bill. And I was making the point that we have a problem because we've politicized money by putting human beings on it. And the first 10 coins that were minted that I found in United States history, none of them had a human being on them. They all had like Lady Liberty or here's an eagle. One of them had like a sundial. This one had like some weird looking plants on it, like the olive branch, and an eagle was carrying it. But most of them had Lady Liberty on it. And Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty, that's not a real person. We didn't honor a real person. We were honoring the concept, the philosophical concept of liberty. And I think we were better off when we were following that paradigm.
I like that idea. So a great battle. Yeah, you're right. A great battle.
Yeah.
Name it after a fantastic battle. Like, you're right.
Yeah, and they do that. We have the Coral Sea. We have the Saratoga. We have the Ticonderoga. So I like that angle. But you know what? I have a hard time not getting on board with your distinguished admirals. Or even like a Audie Murphy or someone who just did something amazing in war. All right. Hey, Nancy gets a full touchdown on that one. 7 points for Nancy in Fort Worth, Garrett. So, yes, this is naming convention stuff. Interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and start with my next guest. I might have to hold her over until the next hour. Emily Burning. She's the president and co-founder of Let Them Live. And I saw this headline, and I must admit, I didn't click through and do my full complement of research, so I booked a guest to kind of explain what's the deal, the rule change that happened with EMTALA. So let's start. What is EMTALA and what changed, Emily?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Well, EMTALA stands for Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, which was a Biden-era rule that would actually threaten doctors with legal consequences for refusing to perform abortions. And it mandated that hospitals perform emergency abortions, even in states where abortion is banned. And so President Trump has actually just overturned that, which was what I've seen one of the most aggressive pro-abortion policies because it's causing people to fear repercussions for crossing ethical and moral lines, especially as doctors. So it's a huge win that the Trump administration overturned that, and I think it marks a huge cultural shift in our country. We're starting to see people wake up to not just what abortion is and what it does, but how it crosses so many lines for people.
Explain to me, Emily, because this seems to be going back and forth. This was a rule put in place by Biden. What were the rules before then, and what did Biden change them to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was a really EMTALA, again, for anyone joining, is Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. And essentially, before this went into place, there was conscience protection for doctors. Doctors and hospitals weren't at risk for, punishment for declining to perform abortions. There was respect for life. So the Biden administration putting into effect some penalties for hospitals and doctors to perform emergency abortions, even in states where abortion was banned, was really putting the pressure on doctors and them facing legal consequences, including loss of Medicare funding, lawsuits as well, and it became just a legal and cultural battle for sure, and it caused a lot of doctors to question whether or not they have the ability to practice medicine in ethical ways.
This seems like something that should go through Congress. The president can really just control all these medical decisions with a swipe of a pen?
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I think with things like this, it's a very important thing. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that need to go through Congress. But what we've seen happen is when you have medical professionals who are being prosecuted and facing legal consequences for not crossing lines that they believe ethically and morally they shouldn't be crossing, I think it's very important that the president stepped in to peel back those legal consequences. I think this is also a win for state sovereignty. States that have banned abortion can now continue to enforce those bans without federal interference in emergency cases. And I think that this is just a signal of a broader cultural shift towards pro-life values. And we see that. I think it also gives clarity for doctors. Doctors are not forced anymore to choose between their medical judgment and state law and federal threat. They are going to be able to follow state laws and their ethical guidelines confidently.
All right, we're talking with Emily Burning, pro-life activist with Let Them Live. Now, how does this new policy overlap with the existing rules we have here in Texas? We have kind of a unique situation here.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas has definitely led the charge, which is amazing with many pro-life laws, and I think it's really great because it's going to protect doctors in Texas. Abortion is banned in nearly all circumstances under the Texas Human Life Protection Act, and there is only exception is when the life of the mother is in danger. But it's interpreted very narrowly. So if doctors are performing abortions outside of that very narrow exception, then they can be criminally prosecuted and face civil lawsuits. So EMTALA, under the Biden rule, which is now overturned, was interpreted to override state abortion bans like Texas's in emergency situations. So hospitals in Texas would have been federally required to perform abortions if a doctor deemed it necessary. Doctors in Texas at that time would face a legal bind, follow federal law and risk state prosecution, or follow state law and risk federal penalties. But now, after Trump has rolled that back, the federal pressure is gone. So EMTALA can't be used anymore to force emergency abortion in states like Texas. So Texan doctors can celebrate because Texas law, once again, is now the full governance within its borders. So doctors can act accordingly without fear of federal conflict. And I think that's just a broader discussion about states' rights versus federal rights, and how important it is to medical professionals to be able to work within the confines of their state and not worry about federal prosecution.
Well, Emily Burning, I'm sure you're going to be watching this at Let Them Live as it progresses. So is there a concern that this could be stopped by the courts?
I think there's always that concern, especially when President Trump is the one kind of making these decisions. I think that's always possible. And I'm sure that we will see something like that. There's always going to be someone that's going to be challenging it. But I think this is a really big step, for the pro-life movement, of course, but also just overall for doctors being able to exercise at their discretion and not have to be forced to cross moral and ethical lines. So I'm sure we will see someone trying to fight this, but I hope that this, along with many other pushes for life, are just continue, and we just see our culture continue down this road.
All right, this has been Emily Burning, president of Let Them Live, a pro-life nonprofit, explaining the changes in abortion policy. Thank you very much for your time on The James Show.
Thank you so much.